Good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host, Lionel Tavares from the Sabbath at Midnight, here to bring you these new t-shirts we just got made. They have the crucifix in the front, very obvious, so you could show off exactly who you represent. The back has the old school, old English. Okay, we're keeping it gangster, and we're keeping it truthful. So if you guys want to grab one of these shirts and you're not ashamed to represent Jesus Christ, and you want to help a Christian podcast grow and reach bigger audience, please reach out and we will sell you one of these shirts for a very reasonable price. If you are international, it will be a little extra, but work with me and I'll work with you. I hope you guys have a good day and God bless.
Coming from the great American Southwest in the very low desert, good morning, good evening, whatever the case may be to all my listeners around the world. I'm your host, Lionel Tavares, and as always, extremely blessed and glad to be here by the Lord Jesus Christ himself. So tonight, on tonight's episode, we are bringing back a returning guest, one of my good friends, John Pounders, and the subject at hand is just kind of talking about current events, kind of letting ideas flow. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, you can go on and on. So that's what we're going to do. It's going to be like three men just having a, grown man conversation through a biblical lens, everything from, AI to what's going on with the Catholic Church to all these new age things to the wars in the Middle East. The red heifers are getting prepared and, the rumors of the third temple that it's going up soon. I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean, we probably can't even cover all of it, but we're going to do our best. But before we do that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow us on all our social media platforms, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and our main platform, YouTube. Please become a subscriber because on Spotify, we're no longer going to be putting new episodes up there. I mean, we might in the future, but we're going to be moving all our episodes to YouTube. So don't forget to do that. If you want to help the show grow, please, we have donation links in the bios. So go ahead and feel free to do that. If you can, thank you. And if you can't, thank you anyways. Thank you for being a listener and thank you for being loyal to the show. All right, let's get into this episode. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever the case may be to all my listeners around the world. I'm your host, Lionel Tavares, here from the Sabbath at Midnight, here with my co-host, Dominic. And today we are bringing back a guest that I've done episodes with before, but it's been a while and it's about time we caught up here with no other than John Pounders. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for accepting my invitation. And yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself really quick. If the people that don't know, let them know.
I appreciate it, man. And yeah, I'm John Pounders, and I've been doing YouTube for a long time now, since like 2010. On Now You See TV on YouTube, you can check it out with NYS TV. So I'm thankful to come back, man, and talk with you. I know we have a lot in common when it comes to just the way we think, also, and the things we like to do. I saw you started jiu-jitsu recently, man. How's that?
I had to do it because one day I walked into an MMA class that I have at my gym. So I walked into an MMA class that I don't attend. And, I kind of just talk a lot of smack about, guys that do jiu-jitsu, I make little dumb jokes, little jabs here and there, blah, blah, blah. And, and the coach, which is my coach now, the coach of the class, he's like, "Okay, come over here. Let's see, cause I'm saying, what's the hype all about? Like if I'm strong, I could just toss you around." And he's just like, "Nah, so come over here." So anyways, long story short, we did some grappling and I couldn't move the guy. I couldn't do absolutely nothing to him.
He made you feel like a child in his hands, right?
Exactly. At one point, he dragged me across the floor, man. He's way smaller than me. He's about $165.
Yeah, I know the feeling. That's why I started jiu-jitsu. The same thing. I went into a class and I felt like a little pansy baby getting just mauled around by these dudes. So yeah, I get it.
It wasn't a good feeling. Even though I know how to box, after feeling that, it didn't matter if I knew how to box, because the moment I get on the floor, there's no way I'm getting up.
Yeah, man. And that's cool to admit that. A lot of people won't admit that until they try it. It's one of those things you don't realize how bad you can be at something until you do it, and right, or how good you can be at it, I guess, until you do it. Like, no, there's no way to know that you're that bad at grappling until you try it with these guys. So
I got worked, yeah. So,
yeah.
but so John, so with everything right now, the reason why we're doing this episode is because along here with Dominic too. Dominic, he's always looking into what's going on in the world, everything from politics to to religion, and religion and politics, go hand in hand. I mean, look at all the wars that are going on. It's a religious war, it's a political war, and along with that, then you have all these things that's happening religiously. Like, for example, the Pope just passed away, and there's a lot of esoteric stuff that went on right there right before his passing. They did that weird jubilee thing with the doors opening up. It looked like they were opening some portals, all the way up to to his funeral. It looked very weird, satanic to say the least. This is my opinion. From what it looked like, it didn't look like it'd be anything from Jesus. And along with that, there's just a lot going on. And if we're not in the end times, we're definitely in that fig tree generation, or what do you call it, the birth pains or something, because the Antichrist hasn't revealed himself, but there are some weird characters popping up, like that one, what's that Arabic dude that's going around saying he, everyone's nonsense and Jesus sent him. So, John, I can go on and on with all the things that are going on, but that's just, a little summary, to put it all in. What do you think, like, what's your opinion on everything that's going on? Where is all leading to? Are we seeing a bunch of, to me, it looks like all like propaganda to set up a world religion and a world government. That's what I see.
Yeah, man, that is crazy, because I would say that almost every midnight ride that I've done, which is the show that I've been doing since 2016, every Saturday night, and every one that I've done in the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years, have all ended up somehow tying in together. And we're talking about some weird stuff, like you just mentioned, a lot of the stuff with the Pope. The stuff going on in the Middle East is huge right now. We have so many different random disclosure events taking place, UAPs being sighted all over the place. I've noticed an influx of cryptid sightings, which is one of the reasons we're doing a conference about it. It's huge over here in our area. There's been so many sightings lately from normal people. We're not talking just the wackos anymore. We're talking about, people that are police officers, people that are out there working at night trying to get things done, and people even quitting their jobs in certain areas over something that they're seeing in the woods. So this stuff is just ramping up. We have a president right now in office. A lot of people would say great, a lot of people would say he's bad, but I'm not here to judge that either way. But we have a lot of very interesting ties with this man. This guy isn't our normal president that we've seen for the last several hundred years that we've had our country. This isn't the same kind of thing. There's people always talk about the bird. There's two sides to the bird. There's the left wing and the right wing, but this guy seems to be something completely different than that, almost in a way that makes you start thinking about apocalyptic scriptures, that you start seeing this power play taking place. And you mentioned Rome, and I believe that they take a huge part in scripture as being Mystery Babylon, and possibly even tied in with the beast. So yeah, there's a lot going on, man. We could go any number of ways, but I'll tell you that I've never felt this way before. I've looked at a lot of stuff. I knew this stuff was coming. I really believe I knew it, basically because of the Bible. But we've been talking about this stuff for a long time, and it's finally actually happening. And one of the things that I've theorized is that we have the release of what the Bible calls the fallen angels, what the book of Enoch calls the watchers. And I believe that they possibly were released within the last 100 years. And that's just judging by all of the technological increases that we've had. People rode on camels, horses, wagons, all the way up until the 1900s. And then boom, we have information overload, supposedly people flying to space. We're able to track anybody, everyone, and UFO sightings. All of these things have happened in the last 100 years. And so to me, something strange is definitely going on. Is this the last year we're going to be alive? I don't know about that, but I think that there's definitely signs that something bigger is here than what we've ever seen before, at least for me.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Really quick, Dominic, let you interject after this, but I agree with everything you said. Everything's coming into one big conglomerate. For lack of better words to choose. Basically, everything used to look so separate and different, and like, oh, this is that, this is this belief, this is that belief. But now, when you're looking at it, it's all coming together. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense? Nothing looks like separate. And like, for example, like you couldn't believe in normal things like, I believe, in politics, but to believe in UFOs would just be your whack. It would just, that would, discredit your political view because you believe in UFOs. Now that's no longer the case. You would be a fool now to not believe in UFOs because now, the government disclosed it. So now it's real, even though it's, these sightings, they've been denying it for, God knows how many years. And all of a sudden now they're admitting it. And, like you said, like everything's, happening right now so fast. And I think I think the UFO thing is going to be a big impact, on this, on this false religion. Dominic, what do you have to say about that?
About which, the UFOs or the
like the
political?
whole thing, like just like how he said, like everything's coming together. Because I know you had something to say about
I mean,
that.
yeah, there's you see everything coming together, like John was mentioning. You got Netanyahu wanting to bomb Iran. Trump tells him, no, don't do it. You're going to undermine our talks with Iran, the U.S. and Iran. And we don't know which way that's going to go yet. And you got Trump calling Putin he's crazy. And then his foreign minister, I guess, responds. I could be wrong on that title, but I think it's Medvedev or something like that. He says that Trump told the Kremlin that basically he's withholding something bad happening to Russia right now. Okay, either it's a U.S. attack or Europe, I don't know. But this guy responded, only one thing can happen that's bad, only one thing. He says that's World War III. So where are we going with this? Are we going to end up in a world war? Germany told Ukraine that they can go ahead and use the long-range missiles to reach deep into Russia now. So what happens to this guy in Ukraine, which, I'm a little suspect with this guy. What if he starts launching long ranges and starts hitting the cities in Russia? That'll kick off World War III. It would. Mm-hmm. So it's very dire, and Putin has said in the past that he would nuke the UK. So I mean, where are we going to go from here? I don't know. We'll see what happens.
It seems like World War III is on the brink for sure. I mean, I if I had to guess, and this is just purely a guess, I'd say that if it doesn't happen within the next couple of years, I'll be very surprised. I'll be really, really surprised. And as far as like the UFO thing, the UAP thing, if you mix all of this World War stuff, I think that the reason that they're pushing the UAPs on us now, because this has been around for a while, UAPs, UFOs have been something that have been happening. And like you were saying, Dom, they've made people, or I can't remember if it was you or Lionel that was saying this, but they made people look crazy by talking about it, but now they're releasing it little by little. And a lot of people, their religion is, for some reason or another, based off the idea that this stuff doesn't take place, based off the idea that the government is the biggest power that they have to worry about, and they just somehow they trust the government on this. And I think the government is going to lose control in all of this, and the world wars that take place are going to be, sometimes they might actually be instigated by AI at some point, because we already know that they're starting to act on their own behalf. And how hard would it be, and who do you hold accountable when AI starts a war? You can't really hold anybody accountable for that, but we're starting to see that become a possibility as well. I was talking to Thomas Winterton. He's the guy that is the property manager at Skinwalker Ranch. And I asked him, I said, what do you think it is? I just want your honest opinion. And he didn't hesitate when he told me. He said, I think it's spiritual. He's like, but I also think it's very physical. And he was telling a story about how when they put the drones up in the air, they put hundreds of drones up, and they were trying to map the area, get any signals that they could get, because in that area they were having weird anomalies that were taking place, and these drones just started dropping out of the sky, boom, one by one, boom, dropping out of the sky, and their GPSs were showing that they were transported somewhere in the other side of the property as they were dropping out of the sky. And it was really strange. So when this stuff gets released, there's going to be a lot of people that turn to the authority, whoever's up high. And I think this is a big issue that's happening right now. And I think I've seen you lately talking about it on Instagram, but there's going to be a lot of these people that we think are Christians that are going to be playing the flute, leading the people right back into Mother Babylon, back into the Catholic Church. And we're seeing that take place, I think, in a big way. So there's a lot going on there, man. And that's why I say it's all tied together, because a lot of these wars that are taking place are proxy wars. That's our country versus another country. So we're paying this country to do this, or we have set up little warriors to do battle here. So I think it's all coming to a head. And when the scripture talks about the 10 kings in Revelation, that it makes war with Mystery Babylon, basically it throws Mystery Babylon, the whore of Babylon, off of its back and burns her with fire. I think we're at that point right now to where Mystery Babylon's getting ready to get burnt down with fire. And that's why we're seeing the cabal, the dark side of the cabal, kind of going downhill with like the P. Diddy stuff and all of that. We're starting to see the banks, some of the big banks going downhill, and really powerful people being implicated in some very serious issues. And so I think that's where we're at right now in scripture, where the 10 kings are starting to take their power so that they can ultimately give control to the beast. But for right now, take control of that whore that has been riding the back of all the kings of the world and feeding them the delicacies of the abominations. I think that's getting ready to get thrown off the back. I think that's what we're seeing. And I could be wrong, but that's, when I look at it, that's, to me, like I just couldn't see anything else, unless it's all a game and an act, which is a possibility too.
Yeah. I have this. I feel the same way, and when
just
you
for
said,
your reference, real quick, just let me give you Revelation. That way, people that are listening that may not understand what I'm talking about when I talk about the whore of Babylon, just in case. I don't know, what the majority of your listeners, if they've read a lot of the book of Revelation,
let them know.
Yeah, in the book of Revelation, I believe the reason that I think we've been right a lot of these times on these subjects is because in the Bible, it actually talks about these things, and it's written a lot of times in allegorical form. But if you read the Bible and you study it, you start to see what these words typically mean. But in Revelation 17, it refers to this beast, and the beast is always this government power that rises up. And oftentimes when it's seen in scripture, it'll have a bunch of different heads, and those heads can represent different kingdoms, and has horns that represent kings, and it has crowns which represent like royal families, etc. And so it has these entities. Well, in Revelation 17, it talks about this beast that he sees coming out of the water, and it has 7 heads and it has 10 horns. And upon its back is this woman that's called Mystery Babylon, Babylon the Great, mother of all harlots. And so this woman is represented as being the birthing mother of all of these different harlot religions on the earth. And she's arrayed in purple. She's got the fine cup in her hands. And it says she's caused basically every country and every single king to stumble. And she's been the one that's been controlling the reins for a very long time. And it's not hard to see that in our own country. We've seen how corruption and immorality kind of rule and reign. And we've seen it in numerous churches as well. For those of you that have been in church for a long time, especially in the mainstream churches, you'll see a horrible thing going on to where complete predators are allowed in the pulpits. And I believe that this is what it's talking about here, but they've controlled the purse strings as well. And in the book of Revelation, before the Antichrist takes over, before this final beast comes to power, it says that the 10 horns, and it does give you the explanation, and it says, which are 10 kings will hate the whore, and they'll throw her off the back and they'll burn her with fire. And so when I say I believe that's where we're at, that's what I'm talking about. And that's also how I've been able to, I believe, predict most of the stuff that's been taking place, talking about it 10 years ago. That's why we were talking about it 10 years ago, about the disclosure coming, about how they're going to make it look like there's these alien overlords, how they're going to do this or that. We've been talking about that because it talks about that in the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
No,
I
go ahead.
I mean, the whole UAP thing, there are things that look biological, at least to me, and some of them are mechanical. And I've had many up close
I was about to say really
experiences.
quick, John, for John in the audience, and I have no reason to lie about this. I don't know how or why. When he goes outside right here in our front yard, only him. When he wants to see them, they come out. They have to be attracted to them, and they don't look like like craft. They look like lights. That I mean, these things up close can't be no big. Can't be no bigger than than the size of an 8 foot tall or 8 foot diameter circle. I mean, what human's gonna fly in or whatever.
Well,
It's not a craft. It's like
the things I was seeing not too long ago, they were they just kept coming over the mountain, just kept coming, and they were like a really light orange in color, but they were also translucent, and they kept disappearing at the same point in the sky. I mean, there was a bunch of them. They just kept coming. You can't see too well on the night vision, but you can actually identify that it is a ball and it's translucent. I don't know what they are. I don't know if it's government black ops, if it's something interdimensional. It could be a lot of things. I've even seen an acorn craft. That one was solid. I videoed that one. That one was solid, man. I went out in the desert looking for it, and I got this creepy feeling. I just left. But with all this, and me and Lionel, we've seen UFOs, a triangle, and all this kind of stuff.
Well, really quick, I went out to go help some homeless people out in the desert, and I asked her if you've seen anything out here. She said something that you couldn't possibly make up. She says she saw a giant chrome cylinder UFO, massive, fly slowly over the desert,
cigar shaped. And my concern is, when I listen to other personalities who got big followings, they start talking about, there's angels piloting UFOs. Maybe there is, I don't know, but the Bible doesn't specifically say that, so I don't go with that.
What's more concerning is when they talk about, at least to me, and John will agree with me, that once you start hearing people say, Christians, there's civilizations on other planets, and there's there's pyramids on this planet, and there's on Saturn's ring, there's like a space station. There's all, not that I'm just over it.
Well, what I was alluding to is it gets people, especially the young Christians, it gets them more excited to actually go look for these things. Mm-hmm. And that could be, in my opinion, that could be part of the great deception. People, Christians, looking for these craft because they think these blonde-haired, blue-eyed things are going to come and rescue you. The sons of God. So that's my concern with some of these. And you know what? If I talk more boldly about these or individuals, and people want to blackball me, I don't care, man, because I want to get the truth out there. You can't. I mean, for me, you can't go out there and look for these things. Mm-hmm. Even cryptids, John. You mentioned about cryptids, even Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I don't understand why people go out and look for these things, man.
Yeah. The weird thing about all this stuff is, to me, like, and I'm just going to tell you guys a story real quick about these orbs, because you mentioned this. So a friend of mine, and I was just hanging out with him over Memorial Weekend. We were hanging out, and his mother, his dad had just passed, and so his mom was recently widowed. And of course, for those of you that have ever met a widow, is the first few years of being a widow is they're just devastated, especially if they were married for a long period of time and they were the love of somebody's life. And she started seeing these orbs, and she's Catholic, and so she asked this orb to come be inside of her because she thought it was her husband, and recently has taken her down a very dark path. But I don't know what to make of these. These orbs are a little bit new. These are more. There's more than normal. And a lot more people are seeing them. Could they be tech? Possibly, because I think that a lot of the, not all of them, but a lot of the tech that we have now, and that's everything from our cell phones to computers to flying machines. I believe that there have been different, I would say, resets in time periods. And I believe the stories of the old civilizations about the underground people. And I believe it's possible that these underground people have been leaking tech information to us for the last 100 years. We get a small piece of what they understand and small pieces of what they know. And if we happen to come across some of their stuff, then we have that. So I do believe that there are entities or something living inside the hollow earth, like the Bible describes. And there's a lot more here that we don't understand than we do. But biblically, I think that it's very clear that there are human beings and that there are other entities that are celestial beings or that have been cast to earth because of rebellion. And so I believe we can put them all into some category within that. And even demonic beings, like these little balls of light, they could be demonic, they could be something else, but they're all fit into those categories, in my opinion, because I think that the Bible tells all of what he created. Now it may not say, oh, I created these little balls of light and called them this, but he might have, and we don't know what all of these things are. And so for me, I try to be respectful. I don't want to blaspheme any kind of entities that may be here for good or whatever. I have no idea what they're here for, but I would tell people to give pause, because the scripture does say to test all entities, even if it's an angel, to test them to see if they're of Christ. And I think that we need to really do that no matter what we think. And even if there are angels flying around crafts, technology is only what we know it as. We only know it as tech because it's called tech. But before that, when the Watchers taught it to humans, it wasn't called tech. It was called dark secrets. They taught them dark secrets, and they taught them witchcraft and all of these different things. And so a lot of the tech that we even have that we're probably using right now most likely is this paranormal gift. I mean, we're talking to each other on a little camera. You guys are in California, I'm in Indiana, and we're sitting here talking to each other and to thousands of people online at the same time. And you know, take that in context, 200 years ago, that would be for sure witchcraft. Yeah, you know.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. I always say the same thing, that if you were to show the Transformers movie to a 1900 or 1850 crowd, their brain will probably explode. They probably think it's real, coming out of the screen. But I also wanted to capitalize on with the whole alien thing merged with AI. That's a whole nother thing we can go down later. But the whole thing with the Catholic thing, this is why I've been focusing a lot on it. And I kid you not, I made a prayer a while ago. I said, God, if you want this podcast, if you want me to do this podcast, I'm going to pray right now. I did my prayer, I did my thing. And the first feeling I got was to go after the church. That's no joke. And ever since then, the more I look into it, and the funny thing is, a lot of Catholics told me, the more you study the Bible, the more you're going to become a Catholic. And I've actually found the exact opposite.
They told you that's wild. I've never heard them say that. That's crazy.
Yeah. So when and the whole thing with what's going on with, with the Pope, like what I said, and, little things like, for example, it was all over the news when the Pope's casket was closed. There was all this uproar and this upset that the guy that closed the casket is a well-known guy that protected pedophiles in the Catholic Church, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the way I think is that Okay, we already know that this church is, known for this kind of abuse. I mean, it is a fact. It is one of the biggest places in the world to know for child abuse. So my thing is, they have thousands of people that they could have chosen to close that casket, right? Why did they choose that person to close the casket, knowing all this about him? To me, that's like honoring them in some
You
kind of
think it
way.
was
You
a
get what I'm saying?
message?
Like
You think it
why?
was a
Like
message?
why would you do that?
You think it was like a message to all the people that have been
Exactly.
hurt?
Exactly. So and nobody analyzes these things like, oh, they make an excuse, but no, like you could have chosen anybody, but you chose someone who's well known for this, and you did it anyways for the
Yeah.
whole world to see. To me, that speaks volumes of something. And now moving forward, this new pope, everybody's, oh man, he's a great pope because he said, marriage to be between a man and a woman. Whoa, ooh, you know what I mean? Like, duh. But nobody talks about how he did the same thing. He also hid, when these guys got in trouble, these other priests that got in trouble, instead of doing the right thing, and somehow I don't even know how these guys don't even get arrested, but they just send them out to other churches around the world, to
Mhm.
to clean their name again, their identity. So that bothers me a lot. And then in his first speech, he chose to talk about Mary and Mary this. And then at one point he said, our God Mary, and I'm like, and when I hear this, it literally upsets me. I don't know if you watched that show, that new show, what's it called? David and Goliath, John, but have you seen
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The scene where David's walking out, and he hears Goliath talking all that mess about God, and he just snaps inside and the lion comes out of him. That's how
Mhm.
I feel every time I hear this blasphemous stuff from this pope, and all these influence. And I've noticed too, all these influencers, and this all ties into everything, John. And all these influencers are all becoming Christians. Oh, there's a
Every
big,
single one of them.
yeah, there's a big revival going on. Everyone's coming to Christian, but then you find out they're becoming Catholics.
Yeah.
And nothing speaks more volume to me again is that when celebrities start doing a trend, like everybody knows now, with everything we know, that we know it's an agenda, but except for this, Mark Wahlberg, Candace Owens, all these people are becoming Catholic.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, everybody's a Catholic now. And to me, that also speaks a lot of things. So that's all going to tie, like I said, it's going to tie into some kind of world religion. And in I believe in Islam has all this all this extra uplifting for Mary, right? If I correct me if I'm wrong, they also have this Queen of Heaven complex about their belief too. And and they don't agree on anything, those two religions, but maybe some way, somehow that might connect something in the future. I don't know. What do you think?
Man, you said it. You said it. When all of the stars, all of the major podcasters are starting to do this, I mean, come on. You're right. How many times do they have to be proven to be brainwashed puppets before we believe that? And when we see that they're all going to this, I mean, it's to me, it's clear out in the open. I couldn't. I already knew it was coming. I saw it when they lifted up this one gentleman who was debating Carlson. You see all of a sudden they introduce the heroes, boom, and then the heroes branch out and they have the hero squad, and the hero squad comes together, and then all of a sudden, guess what, guys, it's time to go back to the mommy and daddy Catholic Church. We're going to make the world good again. This is the way I see it possibly happening for sure, man. I think you're right. Like when you look at that, you have to be at least skeptical of it. Maybe that's not the way it is, but
Has to be.
you have to at least think that possibly that's exactly what it is.
No, and I can't see any other way around it, because up until now, everything we've seen from Hollywood, anybody with common sense would know that this is a same pattern. They do a trend, and it's always something that goes against the true faith of God, always.
Mhm.
And for some reason, this is the exception, right? And like I said, that speaks volumes. What's that verse in the Bible that talks about, when these people just don't want to, do the right thing, God has the people give into what they want, their curse, it's gonna put blinders on, pretty much. You know what I'm talking about? That's what this looks like to me, because, you know, I've been doing a lot of, I'll just call it quote unquote debates, online. And, these are not really good. These are just like going back and forth through comments. And, I've just stopped doing it. It's so toxic and it's so draining. But, when I talk to these people and I have my debates, they don't use anything from the Bible. They just talk about traditions. And then when I say, well, the Bible has more authority over your traditions, they say the church gave you the Bible. That blew my mind, that they believe that the church came first and then the Bible. The church gave them the Bible. And then in the beginning was the word, and that has no context to them, I guess. Dominic, have any input?
They just, they were a whole different thought process.
Yeah.
I was baptized as a Catholic, and I was small. I didn't know what was going on, but I do recall the father giving a sermon. I asked my mom, I said, what is he saying? He was speaking in Latin, actual Latin. Like, what is everybody doing there? Unless they understand Latin. So that was kind of weird. And as I grew older, I started realizing that we don't pray to Mary. We don't pray to her to go to Jesus, to go to God, whatever. And all this stuff started, adding up. All the different saints they worship, and they ask, Columbus, Saint Columbus, whatever his name is, I don't know, one of them, asking for prayer or lighting a candle, and this stuff was all getting a little strange for me. And when we got in this space, that I really started, hunkering down. Like, yeah, man, this is not right. There's nothing right about this. And I'm not saying that the people that go there that are bad. I'm just saying that they're misinformed, and they got sucked into this system now. And maybe even from a child like I was, and they were brought up that way. This is the way. It's the only way. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to that. This is the way. Mary, pray to Mary. And it's so entrenched in their mind that they actually believe these things, that they could pray to Mary, even their dead ones, their family or friends, Dia de los Muertos, and that goes back to now, hearing this guy talk on the podcast recently, that's a pastor, and I only audited it for like maybe 10 minutes because I just got sick, man. He was talking about how when a person passes away, it's a human spirit basically roaming the earth. And when someone is shattered emotionally or from trauma, we call that heartache. Some people call it, oh, my soul's broken, my spirit. This guy's talking about these spirits of people are broken little pieces just floating around. Where did they get this stuff from, man? And he went on.
No, who I guess you don't want to mention who's saying it, but this is a Christian minister, you're saying?
Yeah, I'll send you a little chat.
You know who he is.
I can guess, but who knows? Gosh, anymore. I'll pick a loon.
I mean, should
throw,
I? I mean,
throw a dart and land on a
don't
loon anymore?
If you guys want me to, I'll mention it, but
Nah, dude,
probably not.
all
Just
good.
leave it
Mention
alone.
later.
Anyway, leave it alone.
If people don't know, look, the Bible, the one thing about false teachers that the Bible says is the people that follow after them, they're cursed. They're the ones that are cursing themselves by doing it. The people that do it, yeah, they're bad too, but the people that follow after it's a actual curse upon them for not wanting to obey God. So if they don't know by us saying it, then it's their own fault, probably, right?
Yeah.
They don't know by us telling them what they're talking about. So
No, absolutely. And, and moving forward from everything that I was saying, that's another thing too. There's a lot of these, these podcasters, man, they drive me crazy, man. It makes me feel like embarrassed sometimes that I call myself a podcaster because of all these other, loons, like you said. But
they come in waves, man, because I think the guy you're talking about, I interviewed him back in 2016, and all of these guys that all of a sudden pop back up again, every single one of them. I'm telling you right now, there was a wave of them in 2000, the same guys, 2016, 2017. Scandal took place, boom, they disappeared, and now they're back because of these new podcasts are bringing them forward. So watch the wave. It's going to be, next thing you know, Scandal, one of these guys does something jacked up. Believe it or not, imagine somebody talking about astral projecting into somebody's mind to help rescue them from Lucifer. Imagine a scandal, right? Wow.
No, I've
Who would
heard
have
of that.
believed it? Who would have believed it?
No, that's wild. That's wild, man. Yeah, so I guess we're on to the same person, but
Probably,
no,
yeah,
no,
probably.
this is absolutely. I'll tell you after the show, but this is absolutely wild that a lot of these people get a lot of they build an audience fast. First of all, I think a lot of these podcasters are psyop type of people, because some of these people are just saying things that's common sense, and all of a sudden they blow up overnight. They're getting flown all over the world to these same big podcasters. That can't be a coincidence. That it's always the same type of pattern. Does that make any sense what I'm saying, John? You know what I mean? It's like
Dude, it makes look, I've been doing this since 2010. So trust me. Yes, there are we've always called gatekeepers in all of this. And if you're not part of the club, you're not part of the club. And if you are, you are. And so, yes, I've been doing it. So let's put it this way. People are like, oh, you guys are a big channel. You got 270,000 subscribers. I've been doing it since 2010. It's 2025. That's 15 years I've been doing YouTube. So don't tell me some of these channels got 1 million subscribers and they've only been doing it a couple of years. So look, there's gatekeepers in all of this. I'm not going to name them all. You guys will know if you're smart enough to look. If your eyes are open, you can see it. But man, that's part of the reasons why I'm doing SpiracyCon this year, because not just in the world we're talking about, but in the realm of the conference world too, every conference that is done on this subject is a very closed, gated conference, because they don't want certain narratives being portrayed at these conferences. It's okay to talk about exposing things. It's okay if you expose this or you expose that. But as soon as you have the real truth of the matter, the part that actually makes the most sense, that actually people need to know, then you're the problem. You're not a problem until then. You can talk, you can expose anything. You can talk about anything. You can say whatever. But when you have the power behind your words, the one that actually changes people, that's when you're not part of the club. And these people can make up all kinds of wild stuff. And of course, people are going to believe it because people are stupid. They love watching stupid stuff. And I'm not saying all people, obviously not. We have a good audience of people that listen and they understand, they see these things. But the majority of people follow the biggest idiot. It's a test proven that the biggest narcissist, the biggest person that's got the most problems mentally always ends up leading a pack of people. Why? Because people are naturally goats in a way. There's sheep and there's goats. Well, the goats are going to follow the biggest idiot. And so there lies this whole gatekeeper thing. They know how to drive that. They know how to drive the goats. They know how to keep certain people out. But like you talked about the movie, the show with David, I can't remember what it's called.
House of David.
House of David. Yeah. Sometimes God raises people up to go through their gatekeepers and leave them wishing that they weren't gay. Just leave them laying. There are people that can go through and leave them laying. And whether they are there to help them or not, God's going to lift these Davids up. And I think that's what we got to pray for. We got to pray that God lifts the Davids up to slay the gatekeepers. And I'm not talking physically, really, truly. I'm talking about they need to be, in my opinion, they just need to step down. They're not doing a very good job. And they're not holding the gates the way that they should be, because we're getting ready to plow through them. Would you agree with me on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And
we're going to try anyway, right?
And you're like the second person that has said this to me. And I don't know if you know the podcast, the channel Dark Waters. Anyway, this guy, James Williams, he's also a believer in Christ. He said the same thing you said. Exactly. He said there's a wave of all these podcasters. And, he was saying, like, these people we're talking about that are calling themselves Christians. He called them like priests. Okay. Like, let's say, for example, there's Christian channels that obsess with Bigfoot, or there's one that obsessed with Dogman. He said he called those channels, they're actually grand priestess for these Bigfoots or for these Dogman. It's like, you're a Christian channel, but your logo is, is a is God's enemy, pretty, so to
Yeah.
say. So you're a Christian, but you're gonna make your logo a Nephilim, and you're gonna name it after some creature. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And he
Dude,
had me
false
thinking.
prophets always minor on the majors and major on the minors, if you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was saying that there's a wave of these guys, and then he was saying like that wave is gonna get taken out by guys that have a similar belief that we have, which is straightforward. You know what I mean? Like, the Bible's the Bible, and there's no adding or subtracting from it. It's pretty much what we believe.
Yeah. I've been through all those waves. I've stayed on the boat, thankfully, through all the waves. Just keep riding, just keep rolling.
Dude,
No astral projecting into werewolf's nightmares and slaying the vampirist queen. So none of that's been going on here. So I don't have millions of followers, but we're still here. So
yeah, and you're normal, and you don't have to sacrifice God knows what to be in that position, and nothing's worth sacrificing God. We already know what they like to do to men, and women. They like to destroy you mentally, and there's only one way to do that. It's through some sick abuse. So I'm good on that. I think
we'll take them to the mat or the boxing ring, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather do that than do whatever sick idea they have. And we talked about this on one of the episodes we did in the back Hollywood, one of those Hollywood ones, and I've seen it, what it looks like up close. And speaking of all that, I wanted to get your opinion on this, John, because a lot about a lot of stuff about our current president, all these weird things that are connected to him, like, for example, that book that Barron Trump book. But I don't know if you know Ivanka Trump's husband. Let me see, what's his name is what's his last name?
The Jewish fellow.
Is it Kushner?
What's his name? Kushner. So
Jared Kushner. Yeah.
I was looking him up, and this guy bought this building. It's called 66. It has 666 on the building, apparently, on 666 Avenue. Yeah. And the guy is who is this guy? I see him all over the world. Being seen with these high up, people like the president of Israel, with Trump, of course, and then he's hanging out with Elon Musk by himself. And we already know what Elon Musk is. It don't matter what you think of the guy. Oh, he's cool, blah blah blah. The guy has some very crazy technology that can just flip around and control the entire human race. What he's coming out with, and it will at some point or somewhere. Somebody's gonna have to do it. It's prophecy. If it's not him, it's gonna be somebody else. And and this guy is just we already know about what goes on in the higher ups of the Jewish religion. I don't want to say anything, I don't want to get banned, but so we already know the people that know what's going on with with those Jews. So what do you think of this guy? I mean that can't be a coincidence, John. I mean, I don't believe in coincidence. There's no way this guy just popped in out of nowhere.
Yeah, Jared Kushner has a lot of family ties to Netanyahu and Israel, obviously. But if you look at Trump's bloodline, he actually descends from a king of Jerusalem at one point or another, and he has a pretty impeccable bloodline himself. And so Jared Kushner is a natural to step into his family. I mean, if you really think about the eugenics involved in a lot of these people that are at the top, they're really careful about who they marry and the people that they interbreed with. So I don't know a ton about Jared Kushner personally. The fact that he owns 666 over on Fifth Avenue or whatever is crazy to me, and the fact that he's got all these ties with Israel. And I've even heard tell that Trump actually converted to Judaism within his last term, I believe. And at the same time, you see the peace talks with Iran, Qatar. And it's all strange to me because in my mind, as you said, we don't want to get banned because we're nobodies, right? We're just talking about these things. We don't have any control over policy, but in our mind,
just an opinion.
Yeah. In my mind, a lot of the same people are probably in control of both sides when I see it, and so I see more than just a maybe Zionist Muslim thing that's happening. Yes, that's going to be the brunt of it. That's going to be what people see, but there's something behind that that goes even further back than that, that most people don't dare to speak of. And most of you guys probably, if you really think about it, you'll understand what I'm talking about, because it's a deep spiritual darkness that escalates things in the world. And ultimately, though, even though this deep darkness escalates things in the world, there's one who stands supreme over all of it, which is our God. And even the wicked people, he's going to be directing towards his goals. And so when I look at a lot of these things and I see these things, I don't really know what to think about all of them, but I do have a faith that even though they may look dark, even though things may look rough, that the king that I serve is the one that is able to transform that situation into a positive thing. So no matter, who the president is, it doesn't really matter, because ultimately it says that he's able to shift their hearts and shift their minds. And I think Trump is really doing the will of God, whether he's a Christian or not, or whether he believes in God or not. He is actually being some kind of staff in his hand, just like Nebuchadnezzar was a staff in God's hand, just like all of these kings in the Bible. Even Pharaoh, God used Pharaoh to show Israel how powerful he is. He even though he killed him in the end, he still used him, because he put it in his heart to rebel against God and say, don't let him go, because he probably wanted to let him go after all of his cattle died and frogs were everywhere and blood was everywhere. He wanted to let him go, but it said God hardened his heart, flipped it, and kept it going, because God controls these things. And so Jared Kushner, as much as all of these guys may want to have say or control, in the end, I do believe that there's a guiding hand over all of this. And that's kind of what makes it easy for me to sleep at night, because I just look, ultimately, I can't do anything about any of it. Yeah, I feel the same way with you guys do when I see these guys out here that are false prophets, false teachers, just trying to milk people for all they're worth. It makes me mad. And if I met them in person, there'd be harsh words in person, but they will never meet me in person. They'll avoid me at all costs. They'll avoid people like me at all costs. They won't even look at me. So there's nothing I can do about it. But what I can do is sit back and know that I serve a king, and the Bible says he's a man of war. And I know that he feels the same rage that I feel when I see people mistreating his children and misleading them and hurting them and maybe, just milking them for all they're worth. I know he feels that. I know he sees that. And so I just try to pray on their behalf, pray on these people's behalf. God, let your wisdom to be done. Let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, just like Jesus taught us to pray. And even down to the very smallest things, like these people we're talking about that are podcasters, all the way up to the president, they all have to bend the knee when it comes to the king that we serve. So that's who I petition on a lot of these things. But to answer your question, I don't know a lot about Jared Kushner. I think that it's very interesting, his ties and his affiliations. And I think Ivanka Trump is probably a good prize for him, as well as he's a good prize for her. So there you go.
Hey, look at it like that. I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
You got a little trophy wife right there. But
yeah.
And then, along with that, Dominic, I'll let you interject after I say this, but like you said, the whole thing with him getting shot and missing him, I mean, that right there is a miracle in itself. So you're right. There gotta be some kind of play right there. It has to be, God had to intervene, needs this guy around. My question to you is, do you think Trump could be like this? Like he's like restraining what's gonna come. Like right now, he's just here to so to say, just to get our stuff in order for us Christians, and holding things back, and then after him, because think about it, I'm not the only one that has this feeling. Like for some reason, I feel like there's gonna be no more presidents after him. I don't know why. I feel like with how the elections are going, I think something's gonna happen. And there's just going to be no more elections. So whatever's coming after him, I feel like there's something big coming, man. Dominic, what do you think? Do you have anything to interject really quick?
I mean, with that being said, it wouldn't be surprising sometime in the future that the United States splits in two halves, liberal and conservative. It could happen. The states can break up, and people, going towards different religions, different beliefs, mixing, Christian thought with Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism.
It's already happening.
And I bring that up because what I forgot to say about that pastor was on a podcast, as he was talking about past lives, how you can have a vision or a dream that you lived in another time. John, I was like, am I really hearing this? And I just shut it off and said, I don't need to hear anymore. I don't need to hear it.
Yeah, dude.
But this world is just changing so fast now. I see all these things happening. Gnosticism has invaded the church. Probably the polytheist view, the theosophy. All these things are they're mixing in the church now, and people, for some reason, they gravitate towards it because there's aliens. We can be one with them, and the Catholic Church says that we're going to baptize them if they come, and they got the Lucifer telescope in Arizona looking for something, and it's all this stuff. Is just some people get excited about it. It's human nature to be interested in the unknown. Mm-hmm. But if you know the Bible, you know that you shouldn't seek out these things. And always, if you see, when I see these craft in the sky, I always say, in Jesus' name, if you're not from His kingdom, I rebuke you, because I don't know. Could it be a angelic? I don't know. Could it be demonic? I don't know. But I always say that, though, because you just don't know. You don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah, rebuke first, ask questions later, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Gotta do that.
Yeah. And to kind of, I guess, answer your question.
With the whole Trump thing, restraining.
So I would say this is my thoughts anyway. And of course, my opinion means absolutely nothing. I'd say that if you're not a corrupt creep, then you might do all right for the next few years. But I think that this is the time where exposés are taking place of everybody that has been doing dirty. And I think it's possible that there is going to be a few years where you just need to do your stinking best and do your best and make the most money you can to be able to prepare yourself for what might come after. That's what I hope. That's the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario is we hope that's going to happen, but then America's not as strong as we think it is, and China and Russia decide to surround us on all levels and destroy everything that we stand for. So there's the best case scenario I can think of, and then maybe worst case scenario. So hopefully that helps. But I think I'm going to try my best to just do the best I can, to love the people that I'm around, obey God with all my heart, and I think that's a good thing to do. And we keep going back to David because you mentioned that House of David, which was a really good series, by the way. I couldn't say more good things about it. But you notice that Israel was surrounded by an army, and they had a huge giant there blaspheming God against them.
Oh, that's the best episode when you be, oh man.
Yeah, awesome. It is the best episode. And David has no fear because he believes that God is all powerful. He believes that God is with him. And he believes that this giant really has no standing because he's nothing compared to the Most High God.
That was awesome.
And so hopefully we can believe that in our lives as well when we move forward in this world, believe that God does love us and he cares. There's nothing more, as a dad, who I want to please more than anybody is my kid who believes in their daddy. I believe, Daddy, I believe in you. I believe in you. Daddy can defend me. Like, I want nothing more than to please that child because he believes in me, he or she believes in me, or they know. And I think that's how God is too. When it came to David, he knew that he's like, I'm not going to let this kid down. Like, this guy's my guy. He puts my name out there. He makes my name famous. I've anointed him king. This is what I'm going to do. And so I want the same mentality. And that's what I tell people, get that same mentality. Don't be scared of any of these people. They can't do anything unless God gives them power to do it. No matter how much power they have, they can't do anything unless God gives them the power to do that. But if you don't believe in God, they have all power over you. They have everything. They have the finances, they have the weapons, they have all of it. But when we have God as a part of our makeup, then guess what? We have the power that God gives us, and they can only have the power God gives them. And so we trust our dad. We move forward with that. And that's my advice for the next few years. I don't know what Trump's going to do. I don't know, but I do know that God loves us and he wants us to do the best we can and lift his name up. And that's what I'm going to do these next few years.
Yeah, amen. And I'm right with you. I think people need to prepare, and I think people need to get a reality check, because you probably won't be shocked, because this is, also the church has gone soft. Okay, a lot of people that I know that are good people too, man, like good Christian people, maybe too nice. Okay, and I say that because they, ask them, what are you going to do in a situation, something happens, attacks your family, your kids. I would say a lot of the answers most of the time is something along the lines, well, that would never happen to me because I believe in God. And I'll argue about, no, well, that's good advice, Lionel, thank you, but I'll never be in that situation because I'm a Christian. God would never put me in that situation. And, and I'm just shocked at that, because I'm like, are we reading the same Bible? How many times? When in the Bible is what you're saying happened? You had to pick up the sword and you had to defend yourself. Yeah, you believe in God and you have faith, but you still got to put the work in. I mean, that's why God gave you a body and a brain, so you can, if that wasn't the point of putting the work in, we wouldn't need a body to go point A to point B, so you got to put the work in. I mean, yeah, for example, we're going to go back to David. David's going to, sponsor us, the show. David, okay, God killed this giant, and he had faith in God. But it wasn't like God's going, okay, you have faith in me, God's going to go down there and kill him. He didn't. He still had to go out there and put in the work. He had all the faith, and God loved him. He loved him so much, but he still didn't give him a break. He still had to go out there and kill that thing. Period. You had to put the work in. And that right there is my example for those same people that give me that kind of response. You got to be realistic when you're preparing. So the whole point of that story is that you got to prepare for what's coming. And a lot of them refuse to take a simple self-defense class, learn how to shoot a gun, and they're just against it. And they'll bring up that Bible verse. Oh, well, you obviously don't read your Bible line. I'm all, why? Okay, really? What did I miss? There's a verse in the Bible that says, turn the other cheek. And I exposed that already. That's like, that verse, is talking about like revenge, like ending the cycle of revenge. Correct me if I'm wrong. Jesus is like, talking about, because back then the slap was more like an insult type of thing, like to embarrass someone or to check somebody. And Jesus was pretty much saying, from what I've read and studied, he was like trying to end the cycle, not saying that you sit there and you watch your family get beat to death because, you're going to pray and lightning's going to come down and stop it. It's absolutely ridiculous to use that verse. What do you think about to be prepared?
I agree, man. I agree with you. Like, so I'm a whole different person if somebody is violent around my family. Somebody could come up to me probably and curse me for being a Christian or whatever, and it probably wouldn't, like, I avoid fights all the time. I don't even try to fight. I'm like, because I really know that most times I'm probably going to hurt the dude anyway. I'm going to end up having to at least get questioned by police, at least have to wait there, hold them down till the police get there. And then the worst case scenario is I get killed in the process. So I try to avoid every fight at all costs anyway.
Or you end up in jail for defending yourself. That's a lot of another thing too, man. It's scary defending yourself. I'm scared to defend myself. That's the only reason why I'm scared to defend myself.
Exactly. But, in the situation where the Bible says turn the other cheek, and he also says love your neighbor, who are you going to love? Are you going to love the violent, crazy person, or are you going to love the children next to you? Who are you loving there? Who's the greater love that you have to protect there? Is it the children or the normal, innocent people around, or is it the crazy, violent offender that wants to kill somebody? That's the whole people can think what they want, they can judge how they want, but I know this, that those same people that will judge you for doing that are probably this kind of person that snap themselves and might end up doing something crazy themselves one day. They just don't have that. They're just cowards in a lot of ways. It's not because they want to be the bigger man. It's because they're cowards, and they know that if there is something happening, they probably can't do anything anyway. And so it's better that they just don't do anything, and then they lift themselves up as being ultra spiritual for it.
Yeah.
But I prefer the kind of person that is there to protect the weak, the innocent, that kind of person. You know, Jesus did tell all the disciples to buy their own sword right before Peter lopped off the ears of that soldier. So obviously he wanted them to have a sword, and obviously he wanted them to carry it, or they wouldn't have had it. He wouldn't have had it on them.
Yeah.
So I mean, all I can say is this: if you don't want to defend yourself, that's on you. But I would feel sorry for your wife and children if you have any. I doubt you do with that kind of mentality. But unless you're Amish, and then they got a different mentality there altogether. So.
Believe it or not, that's exactly what I said. I said, this guy I'm talking about, I'm not going to throw his name out there. And I was like, dude, okay. Like, and we were going back and forth. And then I finally, I snapped in and I said, Lionel, like, ask him about this. He just got married and his wife is pregnant. I said, dude, I see all your pictures. You're in love with your wife, man. Beautiful wife. She's pregnant. Congratulations, bro. Good Christian guy. Really smart with the Bible too. He knows how to boom. He knows how to rebuttal with these other people I like to debate. But anyways, I said, dude, you're telling me right now, he was saying that, the violence is, nonsense, and you just pray nothing's going to happen. And I said, dude, I brought up all these situations. I brought up what happened in Africa last month. I said, all those people in Africa were good people. They weren't bothering nobody. They were, celebrating Palm Sunday, and they were praying all day, and they got wiped out by Islamist terrorist group. You heard about that, right, John? So,
Yeah.
I mean, where was that prayer then? And he had nothing to say. And I said, dude, what if your wife and kid were in that situation? You're going to sit there and just watch it happen? I said, put yourself in that situation. The dude, he read it and didn't write me back. And then a couple of days later, I posted something, and then he responded to that to change the subject. I didn't pick on him, but I already knew what that meant, because he's an argumentative guy. He likes rebuttal, and he had no rebuttal for it. So I think I got to him, hopefully. And like, I'm going off on a tangent, but going back to getting prepared, because whatever's coming is going to come, and it's not going to be nice. And I think a lot of people fail to realize that no nation, no matter how great it is, has crumbled. Look at all the ruins around us. It's only a matter of time before the United States goes through that same thing. We're like, how many, like, John, how many years is it? Do you know the average civilization before it crumbles? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's like less than 1,000 years or something like that.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you're right on there. I want to say it's like 400 to 500 years, but I could be wrong on that.
No,
but
around there.
Yeah, around there.
We're up for another one.
Mm-hmm.
I look at America, it all implodes. Oh, sorry, Dominic, I had you mute this whole time. My bad. So,
Sorry.
what do you call it? Yeah, but mute your mic because you're breathing sometimes that you talk. But back to what I was saying, we're coming up to that time, and all the patterns fit. I looked stuff up, and every civilization has these same patterns. Once morality gets taken out, once you're right is right, and once you're wrong is wrong, and everybody's whatever you believe is right. And you know what I mean? Once that kind of mentality takes place, and there's no more identity and gender, and also gender ideologies, people don't know and don't get it, that this LGBT thing, all this stuff has happened already so many times in the past, and it all happens right before that civilization crumbles, because everything just chaos is pretty much chaos. You have everybody believing in different things, and everything that's right is wrong, and everything just implodes. And we're there. Like, when you look at the past civilizations, that's exactly what Rome did to Greece. They feminized them. They made them lazy, made them weak, and boom, no more dudes to protect anybody. At least not as many as there were before. Everyone's all weak and brainwashed and feminized. Mm-hmm. And that's what's happening. I mean, look around. It's crazy. And that right there, you want, how we were talking earlier, we want to talk about the watchers. This is where you bring the watchers in. They're doing their work. Look at they're turning men and women into nothing, into theys and thems. And once stuff hits the fan, I just can't see us winning, because there's just so many weak people. And I mean, no offense, I'm just this is just my opinion, YouTube. This is my opinion, and it's scary, because, dude, like, a lot of these people, I meet a lot of people at the place I work, and a lot of these people, I'm just like, man, even if I trained you as best as I can, you just don't got it.
They don't get that dog in them.
No, nobody has it in them. Maybe 1 out of 50.
Yeah.
So
that's the truth, man. It's the same around here. But I would have, when I was over in Lebanon just recently, you
Oh,
know,
that's
people
right.
are so used to war there. This is like their thing, you know, and I'm thinking like America's in for a rude awakening.
Oh yeah.
These people see it all the time. They've seen it every generation, and they were really nice people. And all the things you hear about Lebanon, maybe some of them are true, maybe not, but they loved Americans there. They treated me like a king, really. Like while I was there, they were so kind. But they're used to it, and they're used to the things that would cripple our country. They're used to, and
We have a
this
lot of,
just speaks to what you're saying. You know,
yeah, we have a lot of friends in Lebanon. We they work next to us, and they tell me that the Christians out there don't mess around. Like
no,
what's going on in Syria, they said those Christians don't mess around. He said like living out here, he said like he's just shocked at like how just how like I don't I don't want to get banned,
yeah.
but just how feminine all the men are.
Dude, you would get along with the Christians out there very well. They are solid people. You would get
Yeah.
along with them very well. But yeah,
Oh man.
he's right. They are about it. They don't play around. Like they got one of the guys there. He was held up by Al Qaeda, you know, gunpoint. You know, people like that. That happens to some of those people there, and they're just
On
fearless,
a
man.
daily basis too, huh? On a
Yeah,
daily
sometimes,
basis.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so he was telling me that when he first moved out here, he said this is all like unheard of to him. And then one thing he said, I'm probably gonna make a lot of people mad here, but I'm just, this is just what a fact is, and we can look up statistics and prove it. But he was saying the most shocking thing that he saw here. He said in Lebanon, this doesn't happen. He said he's seen women who have like 5 or 6 kids, like 5 different dads, and they're doing it for money. He was shocked. He's like, what? He's like, because he said in Syria, or sorry, Lebanon, he said that is unheard of out there. Like even
yeah.
divorces. He said
No,
like it is rare. And he was shocked out here. Like to him, because he's like he thought he moved to Sodom and Gomorrah when he came out to
basically,
California. Straight up,
basically,
he had to like adjust to this to California. It took him like a year
yeah,
to be like, okay, this is normal. Seeing dudes wearing shorts, all the way up, wearing, tidy whities. And yeah, it's like this is what America has become. To when people come over, like, what's going on? you know?
it's like Reno 911. Remember that show? Right?
Yes, the
That's
little
what
short. That's
that's what
exactly.
our country's like. You know, the government's running around in their speedos trying to fix things.
No, it's wild. So that right there
I
spoke
shouldn't be
volumes.
laughing. It's sad, but it's just
No, but dude, look, it's better to laugh than to say what's really on my mind,
yeah,
because to get on a serious note, I think all this is like I said, is playing into the end times. And I think all this is all a part of the agenda of transhumanism. The whole thing to get rid of your gender and your race or whatever, get rid of, your, like I said, they want you to be genderless, period. And I think that ties into transhumanism, because if people are willing, like a man, like just a grown man is willing, some of these men are willing to mutilate their genitals, man. Like that is so crazy to me. If you're willing to do that, you're willing to take this upgrade that's coming in the future. Human, 2.0, whatever they're gonna call it, market beast, whatever. There's a lot of different theories, but I think that's all leading, into what's going on with the AI. Not to mention, what was it, a Dominic, about this, those wolves they cloned, from Game of Thrones, whatever. Look what's going on. They cloned those dire wolves. You heard about that, John?
yeah, I heard about that. It's wild.
They're gonna clone the mammoth in a few years too.
Hey, your mic's low. But yeah. So John, like, what do you think about all this? Like, because we're tying all these things in together. You got, let's break it down. World War III's any day, or any day in the year. UFOs are not when they're going to be disclosed, because pretty much the government disclosed it already. So we are disclosed. We're just waiting for first contact now. Okay, right? So we got World War III at the brink. We're waiting for contact to make it official. To merge us with this, and then you have this spiritual battle of just straight evil versus good, and and the evil could be all sided with with what I just said. You know, you got these people that don't know who they are. They don't know, you know, if they're a boy or a girl. You know, these people also, you know, hate the unborn child. You know, they hate the womb. They hate God. You know, there is a side to that, and people like to argue me, but there is a side, and that's the extreme side of it. But there is, you know, less extreme people that are still on that side, no matter what. So there's two sides. There's no in between. So this is where I'm at with everything. What, like, when do you think these things are gonna like merge? Like 2030? You know, I'm just so, I get obsessed with thinking about this timeline because they talk about that agenda 2030 thing. You know, and I get scared for the people that I love. Like, you know, what's gonna happen if the power goes out? Like, you know, how am I gonna get a hold of so and so? You know, because I want to get to them and get them safe. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, it's really tough to think about. It's scary sometimes.
Yeah, man, the 2030 thing is very alarming, and I think that is in my mind, that's a good time frame to wrap up all the different technologies they're going to need to really clamp down. But I think there's going to have to be a big disaster first for people to be all willing to do it.
To mention that, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that might be the trigger point that happens, and possibly a alien type event that causes people to want to band together and track each other and
yeah, that's
fight against that.
The whole like rapture thing, right? Like,
yeah,
like
that's possible too. Yeah,
yeah, I always had a theory that when the rapture happens, the government will say it was aliens abducting people, and that would be like the excuse to go to war with these things or whatever. You know, to
I
make
always thought it could
of,
be that, or it could be the other way around, to where they say that people were being raptured, and it's actually they're just like killing people, pulling people out of the, you know, like there could be like there's so many different scenarios. But you're right, dude. I don't really know. That's why I really don't watch the news as much as a lot of people do, only because I feel like I know the agenda.
Yeah.
And if I miss it for like 3 months, it's kind of like missing a soap opera for 3 months. You still know what's going on. All you got to do is watch the next episode, and they'll recap everything 50 times for you to make sure you understood what you missed, you know? But you're right, man. It's weird stuff, dude. And I think that no matter what, whether you're a believer, whether you're not a believer, you have to realize that something's weird. And if you don't realize that, then do yourself a favor, take this hand right here and place it out straight like that, then look at it and have it look at you, and then firmly press it towards your face as hard as you can until you start to understand what's going on. So there
no
you go.
Kidding, dude. Jeez, that's how I feel. Really good. No kidding, man. Dominic, you have any? I know you wanted some interjection. I'm sorry I muted you. We got 15 minutes left, Dominic. So go ahead and take away the floor.
No, I think in some way, when these entities come in their craft, I think leading them is going to be the Queen of Heaven.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, just in my opinion, because that'll consolidate the Islam faith and the Catholic faith, and those are the two biggest, because they both believe in this you know, Queen of Heaven. And maybe maybe you start seeing worship. Maybe you start seeing people baking cakes to the Queen of Heaven all over again. So that's my opinion. That I think the Queen of Heaven will show up with these
that'd be interesting.
These interdimensional entities.
That'd be wild.
I don't think they're from outer space or some planet. I think they're interdimensional, under the sea, under the earth.
We almost got him. He's gonna be a flat earth there.
You know.
Guys, he's talking
from the North Pole all the way to the ice walls, right?
Yep, exactly. Well, it makes more sense.
Yeah,
it makes more sense than a piece of foil going to the moon. But you know
John
posted the landline too.
Yeah, yeah. John posted something about that on Facebook. I started laughing, man. It was so fake.
It looked like it looked like when I was in San Francisco, I saw these little homeless camps on the side of the road. I was like, that's what that looked like. It looked like a homeless camp is what that was.
Yeah,
people already been living on the moon in homeless camps.
Really flimsy too. And then I saw a picture of the bug and then the craft, and the craft is bigger than the thing. So like you don't think about these things. So that thing was in there and it somehow came out of it. You really don't think about these things as a kid. And I remember like what I saw today, that image, and I thought about, why didn't I think that as a kid? You just don't. You don't question it. Like you think about it, but you don't question it, because back then I don't know when this like this kind of realm shift, John, but there was a shift in in like how people think. Because before, John, you know, there was a time where people really didn't question anything the news said or NASA. Even if it didn't make sense, people were just like, there's no reason why they would lie to us. And something happened. And I believe when Trump first started running for president and he started calling out the fake news, because he invented that fake news. He started that. And there was like this shift where everything that you thought was BS, you started to look into it and it is BS. And then it just kind of shifted. It's like a whole, you know what I'm talking about? It's like this.
Oh yeah,
It's
2020, man, 2020
Oh.
vision. That was the weird thing about all that. It just all seemed to shift right around that time. I definitely believe what you're saying is true there.
Yeah, there was like a reality. There's like a reality shift that happened, because even the people that are against us, what we believe in, are seeing the fake news. You know, and that's the irony of it. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a Satanist or Christian or whatever. We all enjoy the beautiful view of a nice waterfall, or the, you know, the majesticness of a volcano exploding. You know that's the thing about it. You know, we all enjoy the same things. We all enjoy the same foods, but we can't just, you know, all get along. But you know, to close out this show here, you know, the last thing I want to say is that, what is your opinion on like Israel? What do you think is going to happen do you think it's all just BS that, you know, they got these red heifers, right? And then they keep talking about, you know, building this temple. Now, these red heifers they do have red heifers, is a fact, you know, and these things are only going to live so long. So, you know, I also think about that, the lifespan of these things, you know, things are going to kickstart. If these heifers are going to be sacrificed, it's going to kickstart soon, you know, because you can't just, you know, wait forever. You know, things have a lifespan. So, like, do you think that could have any kind of, you know, timeline on anything, if those are the heifers they're going to sacrifice?
From what I understand, there's only a few left that are qualify for a sacrifice,
That's what I'm
and
saying.
they may only be like the next year or two. I think is the oldest age they can be, possibly. I can't remember the exact numbers on that. And what happens when they're able to do this sacrifice is these ashes of this heifer are to purify the tools that they use to build the temple on the Temple Mount, and to also purify the Temple Mount, which will allow Jews on there now. So there's a certain sect of Jews that will not approach Temple Mount because there has been no red heifer sacrifice. When that happens, they will overtake the Temple Mount. They won't spare anything. They don't care. There's a certain sect of Jewish people that live in Israel that want war, and that's all they want. They'll do anything to make it happen. And as soon as they're able to get on there legally, spiritually, they will step foot there. And the reason I know this is because you see it in other mosques all around the area. As soon as this specific religious group of Jews is able, they take it over, and boom, they kill a lot of people. And they even regulate how many times Muslims can even be on there. So
wow,
to think that couldn't happen would be naive. Also, it seems that it would be hard to imagine that Israel isn't trying to instigate war all around them on purpose. It would be hard to imagine that that's not the case with what's going on in Palestine, and people are seeing this openly now. Like, you can't hide it anymore because they're videotaping what's actually happening, videotaping the atrocities, and people are seeing it online. So you can't hide it. You can't say this is, you can't pee on somebody and tell them it's raining when they have a videotape of you peeing on their head, right? This is what's going on right now. And so the whole world is getting openly, at least, irritated with Israel for doing this. And I think that leads us to the prophecy where the Bible says that there'll be basically a bubbling pot, and there'll be a stumbling block to everybody around them, and people will hate them basically, and they'll be doing evil in God's sight. But then the whole world comes up against them, and that's where we're left, and I think that's a possibility of what's actually happening. And of course, I know that there's the other school of thought that says, well, they're not legitimately Israel, they're not legitimately Jews, and some of that is probably true to a certain extent, but there are people that have been there for a long time that are genetically that will still be there, because in the Bible, it talks about 2/3 of the people that are there get wiped out. So there's at least a third of genetically pure Hebrews there, I believe. So is that possible for that to happen? I think it's very possible. I think it's like as soon as this red heifer thing happens, that's kind of what stoked the whole Lebanon thing that happened took place. From what I understand, that's what I was told. That's one of the things they thought they were going to do it, and so they wanted to stop it from happening because this is a big contention point. When that happens, that's going to be huge for sure. For sure, people need to be on the lookout for that. That's a real thing, and that's once that happens, it's going to trigger something for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude. Dominic, go ahead and interject really quick. I know that you got something to say about Israel. I know you got a lot of info. Go ahead.
No, I mean it's true what John's saying.
Go ahead.
It's true in the fact that there are atrocities going on, and it needs to stop. I see this constant fighting, and I see all these things going on with Iran and what's that place, Yemen, and then you got Iran, and you got all these players now coming to a full circle where it kind of sounds like it's biblical because it seems like they want to surround Israel.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like, and you have Turkey. You can't trust that guy Erdogan. You can't trust him, and he's supposed to be with the NATO, whatever, UN, I don't know. And I look at all this stuff. I'm like, you know what, man? If this stuff happens, that's one step closer to Jesus Christ for me and for all of us, because this all eventually is going to come to a head. The pressure pot's getting more pressure and more steam in it, and it's about to blow its lid. I don't know what's going to happen with Iran and the nuclear deal. I don't know what's going to happen with Russia, and them saying the only bad thing that can happen is World War III, and there's a lot of volleys being thrown out there both ways. Is it just a political way of Putin trying to get more land out of Ukraine? I don't know, but he's amassed, according to the news, got the news, he's amassed 50,000 troops at the border.
Oh.
So I mean, what are we looking at now? What happens if they?
My bad. I go to the restroom. Go for it.
And some of these soldiers are from North Korea, and you got Belarus, who's an ally to Russia. So you got all these things going on. Trump saying we got stuff that you don't know about. He's talking about military stuff, and it just like threats back and forth, And you got the Zelensky guy. I just see we only can see the optics from the outside from what they're telling us, but we don't know what's really happening in Ukraine or Russia or Germany. We don't really know the nuts and bolts of what's making this turn.
Rumors.
Yeah. I know it's sad because I have a friend that's over there right now. He's just basically supplying people, training. I went with him to train some people for life-saving stuff. I didn't go to Ukraine with him, but I went to Lebanon. We went to Lebanon, and you guys probably know him, Twitch. You should interview him sometime, by the way. He's over in he just got, I think he's either in Syria right now or Lebanon. So he went from Ukraine to Syria to Lebanon. And you're right, we don't know all the inner workings of what's going on, but their people are dying and they're poor and they have nothing. And it's a disgusting situation for the people that live in Ukraine. I'll tell you that much right now. So,
wow, and isn't that like I mean, I don't know if it is anymore, but isn't that like a mostly an Orthodox Christian place?
A lot of them are, yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And and we, there's like we could do a whole nother podcast on this. That guy Zelensky has a very weird background.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's his fault. It's his fault, in my opinion, that all the people are suffering there in Ukraine.
But why is that, you think? Just because he's just not supplying them, but just boom, where's the money all going? Where's all this money going?
I'm just gonna repeat what Trump said the other day, because I said this years ago and people hated me for it because everybody was on the bandwagon to support Ukraine. But he's basically a money launderer for the devil himself, I guess you could call it. So there you go.
And is there like a name tied to this devil that he's talking about? Is there?
I don't know. Trump didn't mention that, but I would imagine that we all probably, if we thought hard enough, we'd be able to find out what the group of these devils are.
Oh yeah, I mean, we find out new things all the time. I mean, I didn't think it was shocking, but it was pretty surprising in the P. Diddy case that Obama's name got brought up. They had the same drug dealer as as Obama. Oh, what is that supposed to mean? Well, we know that Obama's doing drugs and he wasn't just smoking weed.
Yeah, he's supposed to be our president and he's doing ecstasy. What do you mean? What is that supposed to mean? That means a lot.
Yeah, it means a lot. And then for Christ's sake, I mean, I'm not even gonna say that. Forgive me, Lord, for saying that. But you know, they had the pills, little heads of him. The pills is him smiling, and I'm pretty sure he loved it. He loved the attention. I'm pretty sure he loved it. And you know, and Big Mike, you know, came out on the interview with the Marlon Wayans. You know, a lot of things are revealing right now. You know, all this stuff's coming out, and I don't think he did that on purpose. Did you see the clip that went viral for a little bit where Michelle Obama was on Marlon Wayans' podcast with another guy? You know, his kids. You know, he supports all that transgender stuff for kids. She was talking about, oh yeah, you know, I want to applaud you, for being so supportive of your transgender child. And as a man, that's what she said. Did you see that clip? She said, and the people that are new to this, you made a mistake. But how many times has Obama called, Michael, Michelle, on his little speeches like this so many times? I mean, you don't make those mistakes by accident. And then
have you ever called yourself a woman by mistake and not corrected yourself?
No kidding, right? You wouldn't do that.
No, it'd be like, as a woman, hold on. I mean, as a man, it would be that easy.
That's wild. And what do you call it? Yeah, as I was saying, all that's going on. And I think, all this is coming out to a big revelation that, like this is like part of the Luciferian doctrine, I would say, because isn't transgender part of the way of Luciferianism? Like the statue itself is transgender. We all know the Statue of Liberty is Lucifer, and it's it's a dude woman looking thing. Goes back to Columbia and all these the Rome. It's all the same person. And I think that and people think I obsess with it and I'm just big old homophobe, but no, I see that as a big deal because it's not normal. And it's taking over the kids. It's wild to me. But anyways, I digress. You got any last words, John? You got any last thoughts or anything?
Hey, thanks a lot for bringing me on here. First off, dude, I appreciate it. I always enjoyed talking to you guys.
Heck yeah,
hopefully we can do it again really soon. I want to just say, enjoy your life the best you can while you're here. Prepare, have fun, and love other people around, and do the best you can to treat them with love and respect, because ultimately, brothers and sisters, the reason we're here is to treat other people with respect and love. And I really believe that. I think that if you can do that, you'll be held in high regard by most people. And on top of that, the Father will show you favor. I believe that. And so that's all I got to say.
Dominic, last words.
Well, it was great having you on, John. It's always a good time. A lot of knowledge, a lot of, just, think tank, just, what's going on in the world. And what I want to say, this podcast was all in our opinion, and we have a right to that. And we're just throwing ideas out. There's so many things going on in the world, and we have to wait and see what happens. Just leave it to Jesus Christ. So, what's coming, and always put him forth. Always put him in your life first before anything else. Always ask him, to protect you. Even if you got to pray Psalm 91, you want the angels to take charge over you, to protect you from his kingdom, and all these things, those nuances, people need to look in the Bible and say this prayer. If you don't know anyone else, any other prayers, just pray Psalm 91 over you and your family. That's the go-to. But once again, John, thank you for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Oh yeah, John, thank you very much for coming on the show. And just, this is just all in my opinion. This is all just for entertainment purposes. I don't know what I'm talking about. I am absolutely clueless what I'm talking about. So I just want to put that out there. But again, though, John, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I know that our friendship is, it's going to lead us somewhere to something big, in the grand scheme of serving the Lord. And I really do mean that. Like, something's going to happen.
I believe that too, man.
So, we got to keep in touch, and then, hopefully that passport comes in. If I got to send a couple of extra $100 for expedition, I'm going to try to get that in so I can get to that, event you're doing.
Yeah, 90 days, man. So it's,
by the way,
it's called SpiracyCon, SpiracyCon.com.
Right there, guys. So if you guys are out there in that area, check it out. Fly out there, look up the website. But thank you again. God bless everybody. Good morning, good evening, whatever the case may be to all my listeners around the world. But for me in California, it is good night. It is almost 9 o'clock. And thank you, John, for staying up late. Hang on right now while I just close this out. God bless everybody. And see, end the recording.